Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another live English stream. Now, if this is your first time watching, you're very, very welcome. If you don't know us, my name's Craig. I'm from the mansioningles.com website where you can learn English for free, especially if you're a Spanish speaker. We also have a podcast. You can find that at inglespodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're interested in studying with me with a small group of lovely people, and I just finished a class that I really enjoyed, and maybe we'll see them in the chat later, go to englishcraig.com and sign up for one of my conversation courses. With me today, it's always a pleasure to say hello and welcome to Lynne from putitlikethis.com.
Thank you, Craig. It's a pleasure for me to be here as well. Yeah, and so I suppose I have to introduce myself now. So my name's Lynne. I'm from putitlikethis.com, and I'm an online English teacher. I only do online classes like Craig, but I do a lot more individual classes, I think, than you do. I don't do very many group classes. So I specialize in tailor making classes to try to help you find your own voice in English. That's why the name of my organization is called Put It Like This, because I want you to put it the way you want to put it in English, to find your own voice in English and express your own personality. So if you're interested in courses with me, you can go to the website and find out more. And there's also a page where you can contact me if you're interested in classes.
Okay, now if you're watching live, we are streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So if you are watching, let us know, say hi, say hello, write your name and where you're from so that we know people are actually listening to us. And this microphone's working. Tell us where you're from. And while you're doing that, we'll tell you what we're speaking about today.
So the title is Keep It in the Family. I actually had a problem with this, Craig, because I was telling one of my students that tonight the topic was Keep It in the Family. And then they said, what does that mean? And then
what does it mean?
Oh, what does it mean? So Craig, tell us, what does Keep It in the Family mean?
Well,
it's a very common phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, the family unit. We often speak about the family as being a very kind of closed, insulated group where we tend to trust each other, not always, but usually trust each other inside the family group. So we can use it also as a euphemism. If you want to tell a secret, for example, you could say, well, I'll tell you this, but keep it in the family. Keep it between us. Keep
between
it closed
us within,
in this group.
Within the group.
Within
so
the group.
I thought that too. I thought actually it's got a lot to do with secrets, hasn't it? When you keep it in the family, then it's usually sometimes maybe you have good news or bad news. Could be either, but you don't want it to be common knowledge. So you want to keep it in the family. You want to keep it just with a limited number of listeners. Anyway, that still doesn't help our viewers know what are we talking about today. So basically, we're talking about family. We just thought that would be a cool title. But we're really talking about family, aren't we? And looking again at all the vocabulary so that you can describe your family. And then hopefully talking about the types of families as well that exist today and what we think about family relationships now.
Yeah, we'll look at some vocabulary that for some of you might be revision. You might have seen these words before. We'll look a little bit at pronunciation and some general revision of how to describe relationships inside a family, people you're related to. And then we've got some fun questions towards the end about family in general. But with the idea of keeping something inside the family and keeping it in a closed group, that could start us off with the expression the immediate family, because your immediate family, that's your family that's closest to you. Whereas your extended family is maybe family by marriage. When people marry into a different family, they kind of become your family, but not exactly. So they're an extension of your family.
I also tend to think, I think this might be cultural though too, because in Britain, in the UK, when we use the word immediate family, I tend to think of mother, father, or parents and children,
What about grandparents?
and maybe grandparents. So grandparents, parents, and children. I think of that being the immediate family. I mean, possibly if you've got if you're lucky enough to have a big long generation, maybe grandchildren as well, if they're there, if you're all still alive. So that would be the immediate family. But I tend to think even extended family for me are my cousins, for example, even though they are blood relations, they're they're not my immediate family. So, for example, I would classify my cousins. Now, I think really that is a cultural sort of understanding of immediate versus extended, because in Spain, cousins are much closer, I think, to the family networks. That's the impression I've got anyway. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think the family unit also is it
Hmm.
tends to be closer and more connected
More
as well.
connected. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We
Uh,
tend, I think in Britain, we tend to lose touch with anybody that's not in our immediate family. You know, like some of my cousins I haven't seen for ooh, many, many years, 40 years, 50 years. Some of
yeah.
my cousins, I haven't seen them. Hmm.
Yeah, I think Spanish families are closer, and so are Italian families. Hello, Marlene, who's in the chat. Good to see you again.
Oh, hi, Marlene. Uh-huh.
Speaking of close family ties, immediately think of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And hello, Arturo, who's also watching. If you are
From
watching,
Honduras.
let us know
Mm-hmm.
you're here. Say hello. It'd be good to see how many people are watching and where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, extended family and immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
Estranged family. I can see the word strange in there. Is that connected to the word
Mm-hmm.
estranged?
Estranged now.
Strange?
Uh-huh. And estranged is an adjective, and we use it estranged from. So maybe you are estranged from your brother or sister. Maybe you are estranged from your cousins. And that means that you haven't got a close connection anymore. The opposite is next to it. No, actually, that's another way of saying to be not very close is the same as estranged from. And the opposites of that, you can say you are very close to somebody, so you have a very good connection. And you can also use the adjective a close knit family. And a close knit family is one where there's a lot of complicity, really. Yeah, there's a lot of understanding and you all get on very well with each other. That is a close knit family. One that, I mean, close knit can be positive, but it can also be negative sometimes, because if you're a very close knit family, sometimes it's difficult for people who are not part of the family to become accepted in the
Yeah.
family.
I
Hmm.
get the feeling that Marlene has a close knit family. She says
Uh-huh.
we're very close indeed. So that's a
Hmm.
close knit family.
Knit family. Uh-huh. And do you have an immediate? Do you would what's been your experience of your family, Craig? Do you think you have like an immediate family, or have you had a very big extended family
We had a
now
very
or before?
well, unfortunately, my parents have passed away, and so
Hmm.
has my brother-in-law. But the five of us were very close.
Hmm.
So the nucleus of the family were the
Hmm.
five. That was the five of us, the immediate
Hmm.
family, plus my sister's husband.
Hmm.
And then the extended family, similar to you, Lynn, the cousins in
Hmm.
the UK. I was not particularly close to other relatives. I was quite close to my grandmothers, but they passed away a long time ago. And my
Hmm.
grandfathers, I never really knew because they passed
Hmm.
away when I
Hmm.
was a baby. So, yeah,
Hmm.
the immediate family, we were very, very close. And I still am
Hmm.
close with my sister. But the extended family, no, not at
Hmm.
all. It's
Not
strange,
not
isn't
very
it?
much. And with me, I think it's changed over the years because, funnily enough, my extended family in England was quite extensive because my mother had many brothers and sisters, and my father did too. So I did have a lot of aunts and uncles and a lot of cousins. But maybe because it was so big, that was the reason why we didn't really have very close connections, because there were too many of us, like at Christmas, it would have been impossible for us all to eat together because there were simply too many.
So you
And
didn't
and
get together
so
at Christmas?
not really. I mean, like really the family in England, they get together for funerals and weddings.
Yeah.
And that's the only
The
time
only
they get
time you
together.
see each other.
And so I grew up in a very like my immediate family was quite close knit. We were close. There was four of us, and that was it. And my grandparents, like yours, they passed away when I was younger, not as young as I wasn't a baby, but my grandparents were never like they didn't take a big role in the family, I don't think. But strangely enough, now that I've married into a Spanish family, I feel here in Spain that I have a very extended family, because with my in-laws, like yeah, we'll talk about in-laws in a moment, but with the family of my husband, I feel that it's big in comparison to what I grew up with.
So we've already mentioned some of the words that that you may know. We mentioned cousin. Let's just review them quickly. Your next of kin is the closest blood relative. Is that right?
I think so,
Well,
yeah.
it doesn't
The
include the person you're married to, does it?
Oh, it does.
It
It does,
does.
because usually people ask you, often on your passport, you have to write in your passport who is your next of kin. Or, for example, if you're admitted to the hospital because you've had an accident, they might ask you, if you're conscious, obviously, who is your next of kin, which means who is the closest person to you legally in a family blood related sense that we can contact. So,
But
for
blood
example,
related,
my
is
husband,
that?
well, no,
Yeah.
because my husband is my next of kin. If anything happens to me in my passport, I tell them to contact my husband to sort
Right.
it out. So I would regard my husband as my next of kin.
But only your husband, not your husband's family, not your extended
No,
family.
no, no,
Okay.
not my extended family. So I think your next of kin is in the nuclear family, the very close family. But I might be wrong. I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding it, because you seem to be doubtful there.
I'm not sure. That's why I asked. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. I just, yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a word that's not on the list, that we should put in the chat here, and that's
Mm-hmm.
spouse, which is your
Ah.
husband
Mm-hmm.
or your wife. That's a very common word on forms and
Mm-hmm.
passport application, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What the name of your spouse? That means the name of your
Mm-hmm.
husband or your wife, depending on who your
Mm-hmm.
partner is.
It's like a neutral word, isn't it? So
Mm.
rather than saying the masculine husband or the feminine wife, then you can just say spouse. But I have to say, in all honesty, people in England, they don't say my spouse.
No,
I
my
went on
my
holiday with my spouse. You
my
don't
other
say that.
half, my better half. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't usually use the word spouse to describe our husband or wife or
Not in
partner. We would
conversation,
normally
no.
say my partner in conversation, but you do see spouse written on forms because it saves space,
Yeah.
probably.
So let's
Hmm.
look at some of these other words, especially for pronunciation. So aunt is
Aunt,
your, what do you say?
my aunt.
Aunt. Your
I
aunt.
say aunt. Uh-huh.
Interesting. I was going
Yeah,
to say
I'm from the
I
north.
was going to
So
say rhymes with car and far aunt, but
aunt,
yours rhymes with aunt,
rant and
rant,
pant.
and pant. Interesting.
Uh-huh.
So that's aunt or aunt.
Hmm.
And the next one is confusing sometimes because uncle, the vowel sound is at the beginning. Uncle. Do you agree with that? Is that how you say it?
Uncle,
Uncle?
yes, I definitely
Is
uncle.
sometimes confused with ankle with an A, which
Mm-hmm.
is the joint at the bottom of your leg. So
Mm-hmm.
don't confuse ankle and uncle.
Mm-hmm. Uncle. Mm-hmm. And with aunt, we didn't write it there, but often aunt or aunt, as Craig pronounces it, sometimes we make a little diminutive form on that and we say my auntie or my auntie. I would call it my auntie.
I'll put that in the chat.
Which is with an
Auntie.
IE at the end. That's often seen, but there's no change to uncle, is there? Uncle is uncle. Mm-hmm.
Uncle is uncle. Uncle is
Mm-hmm.
uncle. Niece is your brother or sister's daughter,
The feminine is
and
niece.
that's niece, not to be confused with nice. So you might have a nice niece, but the vowel sound in niece is a long e, like T or me. So niece, your
Niece.
niece and your nephew is the masculine form.
They are difficult words, aren't they? The spelling is terrible in
And the
terms of
pronunciation.
pronunciation.
I
No,
mean, the
I
next
mean the spelling is very confusing for the pronunciation. Nephew.
exactly, and the next one as well is difficult to pronounce. How do you say the next one?
Cousin. Cousin. And cousin has the same vowel sound as uncle. Uncle. So look at my mouth. My mouth is open, but it's not muscular. There's no muscles in there. I'm not going ooh or ah. I'm just opening my mouth a little bit wider and I go, uncle, cousin. We pronounce that the same way, don't we, Craig?
I would
Cousin.
pronounce the second vowel sound with a schwa. I say cousin.
Oh, you'd say cousin, and I say
cousin.
cousin. Yeah, cousin.
Slightly different.
Yeah, slightly different at the end. Cousin.
And then we've
But
got
the vowels
grandson.
sound the same.
Yeah, grandson,
Uh,
granddaughter.
Cousin is both sexes, isn't it? Feminine and masculine.
Feminine and masculine.
It's easy. But then we have grandson or granddaughter.
And then we've got your in-laws. You can group all of your partner, your husband or wife's family together and say, my in-laws. Not your outlaws. Your outlaws are outside the law. They're shooting
They're like in the
people
cowboy films,
in a
the
saloon with a
westerns, the
gun,
outlaws.
drinking the whiskey and rustling cattle. No, the in-laws are the family you married into. So the mother of your husband or wife is your mother-in-law. The son of your husband or wife is your son-in-law, etc.
Now, I want to mention one thing about pronunciation with those, and that is, Craig said the group of people are called in-laws. So the beginning of the sound is the I, in-laws. But when you see them linked to the word mother, father, daughter, mother, father, daughter, those words end in mother, father, daughter. They don't end in ah. However, when we add the word in-law to them, you will suddenly hear that we pronounce the R again. Listen, mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law. And the R appears again in the pronunciation because it helps us say it quickly without pausing. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law. If we don't pronounce the R, then it's a bit of a difficulty to pronounce because you'd say mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law. And that's very difficult to pronounce, but the English people don't pronounce it like that. The R starts to be pronounced again. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law. So you can practice that. Okay. With son-in-law, it doesn't really matter because the N is pronounced. So we say son-in-law. It's easy to link with that one. But with the others, it's more complicated.
Good point. Hi, Paloma. Thanks for joining. Ignacio, yes, we're talking about family, relatives. We're looking at pronunciation of some words you might have seen before and looking at the connections that they have to family. It's good to see you here again. We've got some more. Your grandmother is your...
Has lots of names, doesn't she? Poor grandmother.
Lots of names, yeah, depending on where you're from. Depending on how your family call your grandmother. What did you call your grandmother?
Nana. In the north of England, in Sunderland, we all call them our nanas.
Ours was Nanny.
Nanny.
And then the surname, because obviously you have two. Well, not obviously, but often you have two. Your father's mother and your mother's mother. So it was Nanny Whelan for my dad and Nanny Simmons for my mother's maiden name.
Because we used the maiden names. It was the same in my house
yours.
too. It was my Nana Kitchen and my Nana Copley. Uh-huh. Hmm. Which was my mother's maiden name. It wasn't the granny's maiden name. Hmm.
Actually, thinking about it, it was Nanny when I was young, and then it
Hmm.
changed to Nan when I got older.
Ah. Hmm.
Maybe the same as Mummy and Mum or Daddy and
Yeah, that's
Dad.
true. I think when you're
It
younger, you
changed.
often make them E's, no? Mummy, daddy, um, auntie. And then as you get older, you drop the E and you try to say aunt or yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Hmm.
And what else do we have here? Brother-in-law, we've looked at your
Hmm.
in-laws, and then us, step. Now,
Oh.
stepfather and
Hmm.
stepbrother, not relatives that live outside the door on the steps of your house. That's not the meaning there.
No.
The poor side of the family living
No.
outside. No,
Uh-huh.
if your parents get divorced
Hmm.
and they remarry,
Hmm.
then the relatives of your husband or sorry, your mother or father's new husband or wife become your step father, stepmother, stepbrother, stepsister.
Hmm.
So you get connected to that new family that your parents have married into with the
Hmm.
prefix step.
Step.
Stepmother,
Uh-huh.
stepfather.
And you can also have a stepson and a stepdaughter. Uh-huh. So, but I think the idea of the step refers very much to if you're living in the same kind of household together, because there is another way that we can say that, which is different. You can also have half brothers and half sisters, but usually your half brothers or half sisters, it means that you share one parent in common with them. So, for example, let's say my mother and father, if my mother remarries and has another baby, then obviously me and that baby share the same mother, but we have different fathers. Now, in those relations, we call them half brothers, half sisters, half siblings. And everybody understands that they are blood relatives, correct?
Yeah.
Whereas when you say step brother or stepsister, it's clear that you haven't got any parents in common,
Right.
but you are living together.
Yeah. There's
So
no
it could be
mixture of
that there's
bloodline.
no mixture of blood with them. They're your brother, but really they're not. They're not blood relative. Bit complicated, isn't it? Families are complicated things.
Oof, in more than vocabulary sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Marlene says in Italian it's grandmother's called nonna, so very close to the English version. And in Malta, nana. So that's very similar.
No, no.
Yeah, nana and nonna. Yeah, very similar.
Okay.
Okay. And there are
Now,
X
ah,
of us.
us. Now, this is a very important one. Shall I go for it or do you want to go for it, Craig?
Go for it. I think here because I think you added this, Lynn. I think this is a very common question. Is it? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Is that how you'd
Yeah.
answer that
And then,
question?
and then the Spanish people reply, we are five.
Ah, right. Got it.
And that
Yeah.
is not right.
No,
Right? They say we are five in the family.
that's a direct translation from
And
Spanish.
it's a direct translation from Spanish, and I don't know if in other languages. Okay. Now, you don't say we are five. I'll tell you why. Because with the verb to be and a number in English, it always refers to your age. So if you say we are five, it means we are 5 years old, right? Because the verb to be with a number refers to your age, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to say how many family members there are, notice that the impersonal pronoun there are, right? So there are 7 cars outside. There are birds in the tree. All right, that impersonal pronoun, there are. And we use the same structure to describe us. So we say, there are 5 of us. in the family, and you have to add this of us. There are 5 of us. Mm-hmm.
Although I want to add that in conversational English, what you might
Mm-hmm.
hear from native speakers, although grammatically it's not strictly correct, definitely in an
Mm-hmm.
exam, you wouldn't say it. I would probably say there's 6 of us. I would use there is,
Yes, of course,
which
there
you
is.
can
There's
use
6 of us.
as a
Mm-hmm.
family. You can say
Mm-hmm.
that the family is a singular noun or a plural noun, depending on
Mm-hmm.
how you think of your family. I
That's
mean,
true. I
would you
think that's
say,
acceptable to say there's 6 of us.
what would you say if someone said, would you refer to your family as plural or singular?
Well, I think it's more in response to the question, because the question is, how many of you are there in the family? You would never say,
Right.
how many of you is there in the family, would you?
Correct. No.
So I think it's in response to the answer, the question, how many of you are there in your family? Which is a very complicated question, I admit, but you have to learn it because that's English. How many of you are there? And it's a bit of a mouthful as well, isn't it? How many of you are there? How many of you are there? That is also what, this is a diversion, but that's exactly what the head waiter says to you when you walk into a restaurant. You walk into a restaurant and the head waiter comes over and he says, how many of you are there? And you say, there are 3 of us. Okay, table for 3. And he'll find a table for you. So
Yeah.
it's how many of you are there? There are 6 of us. Okay, how many of you are there in your family, Craig?
Well, at the moment, because I've lost some relatives, at the
Oh, that's true.
moment
Sorry.
it's just my wife, my sister, and some cousins in the UK
So very
that we're in
small.
touch with. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
very small. No kids, no nans, no grandmothers, grandfathers, unfortunately. But when you get old, that's what happens. Let's
That's why you
take.
need friends.
Oh, I've got friends. I've got
That's
friends.
good.
Speaking of friends, I'd like to
Mhm.
welcome into the stream a good friend of ours. And if you're there, Claire, say something.
I'm here.
We can't see you.
Ah,
Ah,
Your
you,
video's not on.
okay. Let me see what. That's weird, isn't it? Let me see what I can do.
While
It
you're
is.
while you're finding that, we'll introduce you. Claire is a colleague, an online teacher like we are, and she's going to tell you about something that's coming up in April in a couple of weeks that you will not want to miss. So if you're watching this stream live, you are in for a treat because as soon as Claire gets her video working, she's going to tell
we're
you.
going to have an advert. This is the adverts now,
Yeah.
everybody.
This is the time when you go and make a cup of tea. No, no, don't go.
No,
Don't
don't
go
do that.
anywhere.
Don't do
Don't go
that. No.
anywhere. Stay tuned, as they say in Radio Land, for the
We are having
next.
an advert. We've never had an advert. It's exciting,
I
Craig.
know. And today's live stream is brought to you from. There
There
she
she is.
is.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. It
You
was a
made it.
really. Yes, I found it because I'm also experimenting with a new light, so it might be a bit
Oh,
reflective. It was really
uh-huh.
interesting to hear your conversation and the family vocabulary.
Do you come from a close knit family, Claire?
I was wondering if I should tell you this rather embarrassing story. Do you want to hear a story about my
Well,
Oh,
it's
yes.
family?
We always have
it's only
stories.
between the 3 of us. Nobody else is watching.
Oh, I'll tell you then. Okay, so I'm from quite a big family. There are 4 of us children, and I wouldn't say we're particularly close. So when I was 18, I left home, I went to university, I worked in London for a few years, and then I went abroad. So I spent a long time abroad, and I didn't go back very often to the UK. But one time I went back and I went to see my sister, and she said, right, Claire, she said, when you come to see me, I might actually have some guests with me. So my ex-neighbours who moved to Sweden, they're coming back to the UK, and they'll probably will be in the house. And I said, okay, that's fine. So a bit of background information. My sister's name is Anne. So I went to see my sister, and she opened the door, and And she said, oh, yeah, lovely to see you. And I walked through to the kitchen, and there's a woman I have never seen in my life sitting at the kitchen table. And I thought, well, that's her neighbor, the one who went to Sweden. And then there was also a really big guy also in the kitchen as well. So I thought, well, I'll introduce myself. So I said to the big guy, I said, hi, with my hand out to shake his hand. I said, hi, I'm Claire, I'm Anne's sister. And he got up and he said, hi, sis. Oh my word, it was my brother.
No. How long
I know.
How long was it since you'd seen him?
Maybe about 15 years.
Oh my God.
Goodness,
Oh,
Claire,
no.
that's
That's
terrible.
why it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? It's like, I haven't seen this guy for so long. I didn't recognize him. Of course, when he stood up, oh, well, yes, it's Nick, So that's my embarrassing story about families and not being a very close family.
Well, you
I
had
bet
been
your- I bet your
estranged. You had been estranged for
Estranged,
15
yeah.
years.
A
Estranged.
little bit, 15
I
years.
bet that your family have never forgotten that anecdote. That anecdote will go down in
No.
your family history forever.
Yes, about the time. Well, maybe I wasn't wearing my glasses, you know what I mean? My excuse, short-sighted, didn't see. But it's about expectations, isn't it? I was
Yeah, that's true.
expecting this neighbor I've never known, never met, to be in the house, and there she was with this guy. So I immediately assumed it was this woman's partner. Yes, it was actually my brother and his girlfriend who'd come to visit. So embarrassing. Yes.
Unbelievable. Well, there's some people watching who actually know you, Claire. Marlene is saying, hi, Claire, I recognized
Hi,
your voice.
Marlene, how are you?
And Dimitri's joined us. Hi, Dimitri. Good to see you here as well. If you are watching, please say hello in the chat, especially if you know Claire. Now, Claire, you've come in to tell us about something that's happening in a couple of weeks. What's going on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of this month that people can join?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this. So this is the first ever summit for advanced English learners, or rather people who want to get to advanced English level. And as you said, Craig, it starts on the 17th of April and it takes place over 3 days, the 17th, 18th and 19th of April. And it involves 10 English teachers, coaches and podcasters, including yourself and Lynne. And all these teachers will give a talk on various parts of English. So there will be talks on how to improve your speaking and fluency. There'll be talks on how to improve your listening, your vocabulary, grammar, and writing skills. And there'll also be a couple of talks on how to pass English exams with the best possible score. So yes, thank you for showing the program. We're starting on Wednesday. There are 3 talks on Wednesday. So there's myself talking about how you can get past the intermediate level. Then there is Bree, who's talking about how emotion makes learning languages easier. And then Ben is going to talk about how to pass any exam, getting the best possible scores. Then on Thursday, we have 4 talks. We start with Luke Thompson, how to learn vocabulary. And then Lisa is going to talk about how to make grammar your superpower. Then yourself, Craig, talking about fluency, disfluency, and advanced communication. And then Lynne is going to talk about how to improve your listening performance in advanced exams. Friday is our last day. So we have Sarah in the morning talking about meaningful language practice through writing. And then Tree is going to talk about skills, listening improvement. And we're going to finish with Eleanor talking about how to get from B2 to C1 level. The summit is completely free, so that makes it such a valuable experience. You're going to get 10 talks completely for free, and all the talks will be live on Zoom. So that means that when you come along, you can, of course, ask teachers questions and you'll get answers. You'll also get the recording afterwards. So that's essentially what it is. The first summit for people who want to get to advanced English level, 10 talks all in one place. and it's completely free. Sign up as you have shown, that little box. Sign up with your best email address, and I will send you the invitation to join the Zoom talks.
Okay. I nearly closed by mistake. I nearly closed everybody and threw everybody out. That's not what I want to do. Stop sharing. That's what I want to do. So I've put the link that you need in the chat. I mean, you've got nothing to lose. Why not sign up for it? It's completely free, and you can attend the talks that you can. Obviously, Lynne, Claire, and I will be thrilled and very happy if you came to our talks, but the others are also really, really interesting. And I have got the banner here, I think, with the link to sign up as well. I'll put that, here it is. So yeah, you need to go to English at Home, so english-at-home.com/summit, 2 M's, / and that will take you to the sign up page, and just put your email in to register and you will be on board for the talk. It sounds really exciting. I can't wait.
It does. I'm very excited to listen to the other talks too. I want to.
Yeah, me too.
They all look very, very interesting.
Yes, I think that's the other thing, as teachers, it's always useful to learn from other teachers.
Absolutely.
And in fact, we've got something for everyone here. So, it's all 4 skills plus grammar plus exam skills. So there's something for everyone at this summit. And obviously from my perspective and your perspective as well, it's always interesting to hear what other teachers say.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, do you want to stay and talk about family for a while, Claire, or do you have to go?
I'm up for that.
Oh, we can keep it in the family then, can't we?
Keep it.
Finally, we've got
in our teaching family. Yeah,
we keep it in the family. Great.
So we were looking at vocabulary. We're just about finished. We were talking about brothers and sisters. Oh, and siblings. Your siblings. We had the word spouse before, your husband or your wife. Your siblings, your brothers or sisters, right? If you have any siblings, it's good to remember what they look like.
Again, though, I think siblings is not really something that we use in conversation, do we? We say, I've got like 3 brothers and sisters. We don't, it's like spouse. You see the word exists. It might be on forms, but in conversation, we just usually say brothers and sisters or husband or wife, I think, or partner.
Exactly. So let's look at this. Is it true that blood is thicker than water? So first we should explain that. What does that mean? If blood, I mean, obviously blood is thicker than water, isn't it? Water, blood is thicker. But what does that mean as an expression? Blood is thicker than water.
Now that there's 3 of us, Craig, you have to direct your question.
Claire.
So you've got to work harder now, Craig.
Okay, so for me, it means that your family relationships are more important than non-family relationships. So blood relationships are thicker, they're stronger than just friendships. And in fact, you've said that your family relationships are stronger than others, and in what ways? And I think you'd say that, you have more loyalty perhaps towards your immediate family, and maybe even towards your extended family, towards your cousins and second cousins and third cousins even, because they're part of your tribe, your clan, you might even hear in London, your crib, that they're part of your family.
Yeah, that's not really my experience, apart from the close-knit immediate family that I spoke about before. Cousins, even the family of my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and close cousins, I have closer friends than the relationships I had with them. So it's very, I don't know if that's true for me, that blood's thicker than water. With very close family, yes, but not necessarily with aunts and uncles and other members of the family. I don't know what your
May
experiences is.
maybe the viewers want to also tell us what you think. Do you think that blood is thicker than water? I think when I listen to that expression, I tend to think of like negative situations that you might be in or financial difficulties. Imagine that you've or if you're in a war zone and you lose your house and your property and your shelter. I think the idea that blood is thicker than water, it's like, who do you go to for help?
Who can you count on?
Who can you count on? Who can you rely on? And I think that phrase relates to that for me, that it means that you can go to family, and because they're family, somehow they are bound, they are duty bound to help you. They have to really help you. I'm not sure whether that's true. I think probably in my experience too, I think I have very good family relationships, but I also have very, very close friends. And I think if I was in difficulty, I know that I don't think it makes a difference whether they're friends or family. I think the people who are very close to you will help you. That's been my experience anyway.
And you, Claire?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because as I was saying in my sort of anecdote about my family, we're not we're not that close. But you'd like to think that, yes, as you said, Lynn, in times of difficulty, that your family pulls together, that your family will be the first point of call for you if you need help, and that you're going to show your family loyalty because they are your brothers and sisters and parents. You know, for me, it's a loyalty thing, I think.
Yeah.
There's an expectation of loyalty, isn't there?
Yeah,
That's
yes,
true.
yes.
Okay, another expression you might not be familiar with is who wears the trousers or pants if you're an American speaker. Remember that pants is the American word for trousers. In your family, that means who control's a strong word, isn't it? Who is the stronger partner in the relationship or in the family? Is it your father who wears the trousers, or is it the father who thinks he wears the trousers and is in more control of the family? Well, really, it's the mother that's quieter in the background, but really knows what's going on and kind of controls or decides, makes the major decisions, but maybe not in a very loud way. Who wears the trousers in your family? Also, if you're watching, who wears the trousers? Who's in control of your family?
Well, Ignacio says it's always the mums.
Always? I don't
Always.
know.
Be careful, Ignacio, with your apostrophe there, because it's mums. You're saying in plural. It's not necessary to have an apostrophe. It's always the mums. I agree with Ignacio. I think that's been my experience. It's usually the mums that have the control of families rather than the men. I don't know. What about you? Do you agree or not?
Who are you talking to?
Claire.
No, yeah, because for me, who wears the trousers, I always see that as a relationship thing, you know. So I think men, I don't want to insult anyone here, Craig. I think men often think that they are the ones that make the decisions.
It's true.
But it's often, you know, the woman behind, perhaps, who's kind of directing things, maybe not being very obvious about it, but kind of directing the way that the decisions are taken. So I think that we have that expression, don't we, that behind every man or every successful man is a great woman. Is that an expression?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Where is it? Dimitri said something very nice, Craig, if you can capture that. He says, a husband is the head, but a wife is the neck. I don't know, Dimitri, if that's a saying wherever you're from. I'm not sure where you're from, Dimitri.
From
Maybe
Belarus.
That's Belarus. Is that a saying in your culture that the husband is the head but a wife is the neck? That saying doesn't really exist in English, does it? But I mean, I think we can understand that. It's kind of meaning that both are necessary, if you like.
And Ignacio, going back to our previous point, in hard situations, your true friends, use the adjective true, your true friends will arrive, and your family too. Family is always next to you. Yeah, that's a good point. I agree.
I was thinking when you were asking the question about who wears the trousers in your family, it's a bit sexist, that question nowadays. It's not really politically correct, is it? Because women nearly all wear trousers nowadays. And men can wear skirts if they want to
Yeah,
directly.
yeah, more for balance. Let's get the balance.
Yeah, let's get the balance there.
Next question. Is it better to live alone with family or with friends? I think that's an age thing, isn't it? Doesn't it depend how old you are?
Nah.
You
Do you
live
think that's an age thing? I don't think that's an age thing. Why do you think that's an age thing, Craig?
because I lived with friends when I was a teenager, when I was younger. Well, first I lived with family, then I lived with friends when I got to be a teenager. And now I live with family because I got married, and I'll probably be alone at some point or not. When you get
Or not.
old, people tend to live alone,
Uh-huh.
don't they?
Yeah, but is it better? I mean, for me, that's a clear question. That I just love living with people. Actually, I have lived alone for about 5 years. I lived alone, but I'm too talkative. I can't hack it. I mean, I need somebody to talk to. So for me, it's really clear. I have to live with somebody who would listen to me and who loves me, preferably. And that could be family or friends. At the moment, it's with my husband and my kids. But if I could ever choose, I don't think I would choose to live alone. Not even when I'm very old. I think old people should live in shared flats. I think they'd have much more fun. It keeps you flexible. It keeps you young if you live with friends, because you have to compromise and things.
What do you think, Claire?
Well, I tend to agree with you. I think it is an age thing that when you're a kid, you have to live with someone, you live with your family. And I think living with friends is also a fantastic sort of halfway between the safety of your family and being independent. So having friends around you means you've got company. And as you grow and become more mature, you have sort of like people who can give you advice. I think that's a really nice thing to do. But I live with my husband, and I love living with him, and he's great conversationalist, and we have a lovely time together. But when he goes away, which he has to do quite a lot for work, I really enjoy being on my own. And this sounds awful, doesn't it? Yeah, sure.
No, I don't think it is. I think that's completely natural. It's
because you don't.
And Claire, as long as you can recognize him when he comes back.
Oh,
then I think that's okay.
Well, hopefully won't be gone for 15 years. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I know that would be a bit embarrassing, wouldn't it? It's like a stranger walks in. But
it was a long business trip.
Yeah, long enough to get divorced, I think,
The plane was delayed,
isn't it? But I think, the thing about being alone, I mean, that there are so many advantages that you don't have to ask anyone, you don't have to compromise. Can I have dinner at this time? Can I sort of like, I don't know, watch
have
television?
The remote control.
Yeah, you can just do what you like. So, but I think I really appreciate what you said, Lynn, as well, about elderly people living together in shared accommodation. I think that's really healthy, because you have something to do, and it keeps your mind active. You'll probably be more physically active, and being lonely, I think, is one of the big sort of problems, isn't it? It's for more elderly people. Yeah.
I think so. And I mean, even though I live with my husband, and I mean, we have 3 children. 2 of them are living at home at the moment. I suppose we're lucky because we have enough space. I mean, it's not that we spend all waking hours together by any means. I think I think it's true that everybody needs time alone. We don't
do you have meals
everything together. We do have meals together. That is the time when we come together. But between the meals, everybody's doing their own thing,
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
going back to the last point about wearing the trousers, Marlene says in Italy, it's indirectly the woman who subtly wears the pants. Yeah, I think we've agreed that usually behind every successful man, there's a even more successful woman.
I
Or,
wonder why
as
that
Ignacio
is,
says,
though.
behind a clever man, there's a surprise woman.
That is
Oh,
excellent,
excellent. Nice
Ignacio.
one.
Well
Nice
done.
one,
You get the
Ignacio.
prize so far. That's
Oh,
very
God.
funny.
That is funny. Okay, do we have time? I think we have time for one or two more
Go
questions.
on.
Let's try to find an interesting one. Oh, that's quite nice because we've got different cultures watching. What role do grandparents play in the family in your culture? Um, I don't know. Thinking back to I didn't know my grandfathers, as I had mentioned before, but my grandmothers were quite dominant, especially my dad's mother. I can remember her sitting in a chair, commanding the room. She didn't move much. She was always in this chair, but she had a very loud voice. She had very loose teeth. She was a huge woman. She kissed like a vacuum cleaner. But she really controlled everything around her to the extent where, where are you going? What time are we eating? And she was always in control. So she was a very dominant figure. I don't know what your experience is of grandparents, what role they play in the family.
Well, mine, I think my parents had me and my sister later in life. So when my sister and I were small, our grandparents were quite old, I think. So they were no longer active. They were no longer working, and they were no longer really active. And they had I think I had quite a distant relationship. My mother's parents had a very big family. So there were, I think, 12 children. So I think when their grandchildren came along, it wasn't that they didn't love us, but I think they just had enough of children because they brought up 12 children of their own. And so I think they were tired, and I think they kind of thought, yeah, the kids, the grandchildren are the responsibility of their parents. Yeah, not of the grandparents. So I find that very different to our life here in Spain, because in Spain, grandparents are often very involved in the lives of their children and their grandchildren. I mean, we had colleagues, I think, Craig, when you and I used to work together. I know some of our Spanish colleagues, their parents looked after their children, and their parents still cooked for the whole family.
Yeah.
So that's very different, because my grandparents were completely hands off. Hands off means like they were not involved. And my grandparents, it was more of a duty visit. I remember, like on a Sunday, that we had to take turns. Like one week it was to visit my father's mother, and the next week it was the turn to visit my mother's parents. And so as a child, I found it more like a dutiful visit, but they were not very involved in my upbringing at all.
And also, I think there's a tendency in the UK when many grandparents reach a certain age to put them in a home, to put them in a residential place, and not necessarily look after them inside the family. I don't think that's necessarily true definitely in Italian culture. Tell me if you disagree, Marlene, but definitely in Spanish culture as well. They keep the grandparents inside the family rather than farming them off to care. I think it's a generalization, but I think it's true. Ali, hello Ali. She says sometimes shared accommodation is a good option because the money is not enough in the air. There's not enough money there.
Yeah, and so it's another option, isn't it?
And Ignacio, there are the foundations of the family, the directors of the orchestra, the trunk of the tree, the big hug that all members of the family needs. That's lovely. Yeah.
Pressure. Well, that's nice if the grandparents are nice, isn't it?
Yeah, if they're nice. Yeah.
Not if they kiss like a vacuum cleaner and have wobbly teeth.
No, but I loved her. I didn't, but like you, it was similar, but it was
more distant.
An obligation to go and visit her, and I enjoyed visiting her, but it wasn't my decision to go and visit her. I was too young, so it was my dad who needed to go and see his mum, and I remember him sitting there playing with his car keys, sitting on the edge of his seat, waiting to leave. He obviously didn't feel comfortable. That's a very strong memory I have of visits to her flat, and it's sad because as a result, I wasn't very close with her, with my aunts, because we didn't visit that often.
And if I can contrast the situation in Spain, because I live in Spain and my husband's parents have been grandparents to our children, and the relationship that the Spanish grandparents have is completely different. And it's like the one that Ignacio is describing. They have been always very not mixed in our lives. They haven't dictated anything or given any, but they've always been the place to go to for holidays. So whenever we've had holidays, we've gone there and had such a lovely time. And they have had such a lovely time with their grandchildren. And my mother-in-law says to me often, because obviously when you're bringing up kids, you have to say no a lot. I'm saying, can we have sweets? No. Can we go here? No. So parents, and she said, that's the thing. To be a good parent, you have to say no. To be a good grandparent, you have to say yes. And I want to enjoy being a good grandparent. So the grandparents get to spoil the children, and the parents have the responsibility to educate the children, to try to bring them up well-mannered. And I like that in Spain. I think that that's very positive. And I'm really looking forward to being a grandma so I can say yes.
Although I've got friends who are now grandparents, and there is a tendency in Spain to push the kids onto the grandparents, not only when they're working, when the parents are working, but also when they want some free time. So then my friends say, well, no, I don't really want to take care of my grandkids at the weekend. I want to live my life. I've raised my children now. I want to do things that I want to do. I don't want to have the responsibility. Obviously, they love their grandkids, but it's also taking their life in their retirement when they want to go and do things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to do with balance, isn't it? If you behave properly, I mean, you have to respect that your parents are not there to look after your children. Your children are your responsibility.
Anyway, one final comment from Marlene here. Grandparents in Italy are the core of the family, the center, the nucleus, to the point that they bring up grandchildren, raise, educate, and spoil them a lot with food and presents and love. So yeah, good point, Marlene. Well, I think we're more or less out of time. So thank you, Claire, for coming in and tell us about the summit. I know Ignacio has already signed up. If you haven't signed up, we'll remind you again of the link. If I can find it, go to the website, make sure you put your email here and join us on what are the dates, Claire?
17th, 18th and 19th of April. So that's a Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Not next week, the week after.
2 weeks. So, Lynn, what are we doing? Are we going to do a live stream on that day or?
Of course, because we'll be on a roll. And then anybody who's been at the live summit, they can come in. Okay. You have more of a rest than me. My slot is right before the live stream. But of course, we'll do the live stream.
Okay.
And then hopefully all our viewers will be very fluent because they will have been practicing their question forms in all the Zooms summits. And then they will keep us on our toes, Craig, during the next class.
We'll be here then in 2 weeks. Before we go, Claire, I don't have a banner for you, but can you explain what you do apart from organizing wonderful summits? Where can people find you online?
Yes, thank you. So one thing I do is a podcast. And in fact, you can see on my name, Smart English Coach. That's my podcast, smartenglishcoach.com. And I also run the englishathome.com summit website, I should say. Summit. I've been thinking about the summit so much that I'm absolutely, obsessed with it. Englishathome.com is a website where you can learn lots about English, and that also is completely free. So a podcast and a website.
Okay. And Lynn?
And I'm from putitlikethis.com. I'm an online teacher. and I specialize in making tailor-made courses. So if you have a specific objective in English, maybe you want to pass an exam, maybe you want to make a presentation, maybe you want to be more effective at work, or maybe you're a teacher of English and you want to improve your dominance of the language because you're teaching CLIL, then they are some of my specialities. So if you look at my website, putitlikethis.com, you can read a little bit more. And if you're interested, then you can get in touch with me via the website.
Putitlikethis.com. And if you are a Spanish speaker, you speak Spanish as your mother tongue, and I know some of you watching are, then go to mansioningles.com where you can study English for free. And if you like listening and learning, Ingles Podcast is where our podcast lives, and you can also listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want a group conversation course, that's the website. I have too many websites. This is getting ridiculous. EnglishCraig.com. They need to be under one roof, I think. That's where you can find information about my conversation courses and also book a free Zoom consultation with me, and I'll give you a quick level test and more information about the courses. Just before we go, though, there has been a question come in that I quickly Googled. Ali says, are there words to speak about compadre or madrina in English? According to Google, Ali, a child's father and godfather are compadres, like co-fathers, but in English the word refers simply to a close friend, like amigo. So no, we don't have an equivalent of compadre or madrina.
But we do say close family friends, don't we?
Yeah.
So we use that. We say, I know my father had, we had when I was growing up, he was an uncle. We called him uncle, but he wasn't an uncle. He was a close family friend. So you can use that for that.
Actually,
and then
I
of course,
sorry, I was about to say I had godparents, and they were close family friends that supposedly if something happens to your parents,
that's
they
right.
will look after you, they will take care of you. And I was very close actually to all three godparents. I had one godfather and two godmothers. And I am, in fact, also a godmother to a friend's two daughters. So it is a close family friend who's an extra pair of eyes, perhaps, looking after the children. And I think originally they were there to do the religious education, which we probably don't do very much of anymore. But they are, yes, close family friends who keep an eye on the children.
Yeah, and I think when you offer, if you have children and you offer the role of godparent to friends, it's a kind of way of making your friends part of your family. It's like an official way. You're not marrying them, but you are inviting them to be closer. I think that's people. I know I'm also a godmother to a couple of friends' children. And that's the way it's been considered. I think that there are family. It's created a connection between families that are otherwise not related. I think so. It's
as a child, it's amazing because you get lots more presents. So
yes, you do.
I always got lovely presents from my godparents.
Me too.
Yeah, and it's an honor as well, isn't it? It's an honor to be asked to be a godparent.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you go to birthday parties and get lots of cake and ice cream, which is another plus as a godparent. So yeah,
a win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation. Exactly. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Don't forget to sign up for the summit, and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.